All right, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the single most stressful part of pretty much any project, the deadline. We're going to move way beyond your basic to-do list and really dive into the professional framework that separates the projects that succeed from the ones that, well, don't. This is how the pros truly master the clock.
I mean, seriously, why? It's a question that haunts all of us, right? You've been there. A deadline is looming, then it slips again. It is so frustrating, it's costly, and it happens all the time. So what is going on here?
Well, here's the simple, honest-to-goodness answer. The tools most of us use just aren't cut out for the job. Look, a list of dates on a spreadsheet, it might feel like a plan, but for any project with real, moving parts, it's like trying to navigate a whole city with a sketch you drew on a napkin. It's just not going to work.
So, to get this right, we have to start thinking like a pro. The official name for this is the Schedule Performance Domain, which sounds a little complicated, I know, but you can just think of it as a complete system for managing time, one that turns that simple list of dates into a dynamic, powerful tool for success.
So what even is a professional project schedule? The key word to focus on here is model. See that? A schedule model. This is so much more than a list of dates. It's a living, breathing system that shows you how every single task is connected. That way you can see exactly how one little delay might ripple out and affect everything else. It's tracking durations, milestones, and who you need for every single step.
And this whole framework runs on a continuous, three-part cycle. First, you plan. This is where you set the ground rules for how you're even going to manage the schedule. Then you develop the actual schedule model itself. But, and this is the important part, it doesn't just stop there. You have to constantly monitor and control, which means you're tracking progress and making smart, informed adjustments as things inevitably change. Now, a really crucial piece of that life cycle is something called the schedule baseline. Think of this as the officially approved version of your plan. It's the stake you put in the ground that you measure everything against. So when you're asking, hey, are we on track? The baseline is what gives you the real answer. And you don't just change it on a whim. It's a formal process.
Okay, so if the baseline is all about looking at your approved plan from the past, forecasts are about looking to the future. Based on how things are actually going right now, a forecast predicts where you're probably going to end up. This isn't about gazing into a crystal ball. It's about using real, current data to make educated predictions. And that is what lets a team get ahead of problems before they become project killers.
So we've got the big picture ideas down, but how do we actually build one of these schedule models from scratch? Well, it really just boils down to 4 essential steps.
First, you define activities, breaking those big, scary goals into small, manageable tasks. Then, you determine the sequence, figuring out the dominoes, what has to fall before the next thing can happen. Next up, you estimate how much effort each little piece is going to take. And finally, and this is the step almost everyone forgets, you adjust. This is where you poke holes in the schedule, pressure test it, and make it actually realistic.
Now that third step, estimating, that's where the real magic happens. See, professionals don't just pull numbers out of thin air. They have a whole toolbox of techniques. With analogous estimating, you might say, well, the last time we did something like this, it took us about 3 weeks. With bottom-up estimating, you break a task into the tiniest little pieces and add up in time for each one. You've even got things like planning poker, where the whole team estimates together to cancel out individual biases. This kind of depth is what separates a professional estimate from just a wild guess.
And this quote, it perfectly explains why that fourth step, adjust, is so critical. Hofstadter's law is this funny, brilliant observation about how we're all wired to be a little too optimistic when we plan. So knowing this, building in some buffer and contingency time, that isn't being pessimistic, that's just being a realist. That's being a pro.
Now here is a really critical insight. There is no single right way to build a schedule. A great project manager knows that their approach has to be tailored to the project itself. You have to pick the right tool for the right job.
The 2 main flavors here are predictive and adaptive. A predictive approach, like you'd see in construction, tries to plan every little detail right up front. Change is rare, and it's a big deal when it happens. On the other hand, an adaptive approach, which you see all the time in software development, is all about flexibility. You plan in short cycles or sprints, so you can constantly adapt as you learn new things.
And the choice between those two isn't just about the work itself. You also have to think about other factors. How experienced is your team? Is your company's culture really risk-averse and needs to see a super detailed plan? Is the tech you're using brand new and full of unknowns? All of these things are going to shape the right way to schedule.
So you've done all this hard work. You've planned, you've developed, you've tailored your approach.
So how do you know if your schedule is actually any good? What does success really look like?
Well, a truly successful schedule isn't just about hitting dates. It's about achieving certain outcomes. Is it consistent? Meaning, does it actually match the approach you chose, whether that's predictive or adaptive? Were your key stakeholders actually involved in building it so they're bought in? And maybe most importantly, is it realistic? Did you build in enough buffer to handle the surprises that you know are coming? If you can say yes to these, you're in great shape.
And that really brings us to the most important takeaway of all this. The whole point of a great project schedule isn't to perfectly predict the future, because you can't. The point is to create a shared understanding for the entire team, to manage everyone's expectations, and to serve as an amazing tool for communication, especially when things go off track. So I'll just leave you with this one question to think about for your own work. Is your project schedule a static map that you printed out once, totally unable to adapt to traffic jams and detours? Or is it a dynamic GPS, constantly updating with real-time data and always rerouting you to find the best possible path forward? Because that difference, well, it's everything.